And you're in Iowa City, right?
Yep, we're in Iowa City.
I don't know if you knew this, but that's where I was born.
I think you told me that one time, and I think we're actually not. Okay, so for full disclosure, we say we're in Iowa City, but we're not really in Iowa City. We live on Lake McBride, north of Iowa City. It's just that nobody knows where. We live in like a small town called Big Grove, Iowa, which is sometimes recognized by Google and sometimes not. That's how small the town is. And so we just tell people we're from Iowa City because people at least know sort of where that is. So.
Well, good news is this is episode 228 and we are live, and now people know where Big Grove, Iowa is.
That's right. That's right.
So Big Grove to Grand Junction works out pretty well.
Right.
So as we always open up our interviews on Chiro Hustle, we really just like to get to know the practitioner and how you got into the profession of chiropractic. So if you can just let our audience know what influenced you to become a chiropractor and maybe what makes you unique in this chiropractic space, because I know there's some cool stuff that you do that's on the same frequency of chiropractic, but you really help people with functional medicine.
Yeah, no, I thank you. Thank you for that. Yeah. And actually, thank you guys for having me on, Luke and Jim. And Jim, I think that that I like to pull quotes from you, and I'm always reposting your quotes. I already have one from our little pre-interview that we were talking about. Too many people think more than they do, and we need to do more than we think. I love that. I mean, it's just brilliant, right? Thank you guys for having me on. I really appreciate it. Yeah, how did I get into this profession? Honestly, I can tell you, but if you would have asked me at 18 years old, I would have told you, honestly, I had never even heard the word chiropractic or chiropractor. I was raised in a very traditional, conservative, regular middle-class American household, about as middle-class rural Iowa as you could be. And, where I grew up, where our house was, we were surrounded by a bunch of medical doctors, right? So my parents weren't doctors, but we had a bunch of medical doctors living around us, and they were really wonderful people. Like, in all honesty, these were some old school medical doctors, like that we don't see anymore. The folks that would go to your house and make sure that you're okay if you called in sick. The guy that lived across the street from us was, I just like to say his name, Jack Morgan, MD. It's like a TV name, Jack Morgan, MD. And then when he retired, I kid you not, the guy that we're in rural Iowa, the guy that took over was Jim Buck, MD. And I'm like, who are these cowboy doctors? Like, this is so great, And they're really wonderful people. They've all retired now, but these are older people, right? And they cared about, their patients, their communities, and really gave back, and really was just a cut of a doctor that you don't see much of in any profession anymore, not just chiropractic or medicine, but just really anywhere. And they influenced me, really. I was so enamored with them. And full disclosure, I was a very unhealthy child. And I mean, extremely unhealthy. I was one of those boys in the bubble where I had pneumonia X number of times. I was in and out of the hospital. My immune system was shot. It was rough, really, really rough. So I spent a lot of time at the medical clinics. And I mean, I really did. I got to, these people were like almost like family. So I would say this as an addendum. Did they help my condition? Not at all. I kept going back because it wasn't getting better, right? But I didn't know any better. You just keep going back to the doctor and doing what you're told, and take the drugs and whatever you're going to do, right? I got shots, allergy shots, everything that you could think of has been thrown into my body. None of it helped. By the time but it inspired me to want to help people. So I knew from a very early age I wanted to be a doctor and help other people like me that just were unhealthy, and help them have a life. By the time I got to college, some weird things were happening with my system. Jumping forward, it turned out I'm negative now, but at the time I was flared up with an autoimmune disease that was attacking my system. So I had immune system dysregulation and some other things. But long story short, I had digestive problems, migraines. I'm sure there were other things, but the big thing that drove me to care first, fortunately or unfortunately, it's the catalyst, right? But I also had excruciating and relentless back pain, along with these visceral conditions, these visceral symptoms. And I ended up, actually a girl I was dating at the time said, have you ever seen a chiropractor? And I was like, I kid you not. I'm like 19, 20 years old. And I'm like, it's chiropractor. Like, and she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, I don't know. Like what? And so here's someone that also had never seen a chiropractor, but had known about it, trying to explain to me what a chiropractor is and how they can help. And honestly, all I heard was, I think they're good with back pain, you know? And I'm like, all right, let's go see one. And I ended up randomly, I mean, I drove to Palmer. I was going to college in Iowa City, my undergrad. I drove to Palmer right down the road, the fountainhead of chiropractic. And I met a wonderful doctor there named Dr. James Morley. And Dr. Morley is long since gone from the school and the planet even. But Dr. Morley, I can't explain it other than the fact that first adjustment I got as an example, I remember laying there. I still didn't know what I was getting into. I want you to know I walked in blindly. They didn't really explain anything. And he's like, we're going to take care of this, right? He's got some residents around him or some interns. And he's got these hands, and I can't explain it, but they're big and they're warm and they're like little pillows. And he's working on my for the migraines, he's working on my head and he's, adjusting the old school adjustments, manual work. And he gives me my first adjustment. And I have never heard a sound like that came out of my body, right? I mean, it was, I never heard that before. And I swear to you all, it was like a flash of light was like through my body. Like, I can't explain it any other way. Not in a bad way, not in a scary way. Just like, I don't know if you can feel light, but that's what it felt like, if that's possible. So I opened my eyes and Morley is standing, so I'm down there. Morley's standing over me, looking at me. And I swear to you, there's like a light in the ceiling over him. And he's like illuminated. And he's like, you feeling okay? I'm like, yeah. And I go, Dr. Morley, you look like an angel. And he said, people tell me that all the time, And anyway, it changed my life. All at that point, 19, 20 years old, I was concerned about was my back pain because I couldn't do stuff, And all I knew is I got off that table after years of pain in my body, and I was probably 50% better in one visit, And I had seen, I want to emphasize doctors and doctors and doctors and doctors and doctors, I mean, by the time I got to university, I was at the University of Iowa hospitals, orthopedists, neurologists, rheumatologists. I mean, I was seeing everybody, drug, that weren't really helping and made me drowsy. And let's be honest, guys, I don't have necessarily the best looks, voice, or personality, but I have a good brain. And if the drugs were making me drowsy, I was losing my asset, So anyway, that's the best joke I'm getting. I'm also not funny, but anyway, I Dr. Morley literally changed my life. He started telling me about digestion. Like, hey, have you thought about this? Basic stuff. You need to drink some more water. Your color looks like this. Have you thought about, like real basic stuff that no doctor on the planet had ever shared with me? And I don't know how many visits it took. Here's what's really funny. I thought chiropractors must only be at Palmer. I didn't even think that they could look in Iowa City. It didn't even occur to me. So I'm driving back and forth, going to the, whatever. And I don't know how many visits I went to, but I, at some point was like, this is it, man. This is what I want to do. This is the coolest job ever. You're like, you fill in all the blanks, it's the coolest job ever, helping people. I still didn't get the big idea, right? I had no concept of it, even with all of that. But I thought it would be a cool profession, and I ended up going right into it. I graduated. That's not true. I graduated with a double major in English Lit and anthropology. I did a little coursework as a grad student in anthropology. I studied a lot of, like I said, literature, comparative religions, classics, languages. Also, I had a great undergraduate degree, right? Liberal arts, that prepared me to do nothing in this world except think, right? Which comes back to what you said earlier, is that we got to not just think, we got to do. And what I loved about chiropractic is that it really stimulated the left brain. It's very evidence-based, science-based. I mean, that's a deep river to run through, but it's also an art, and it's also a philosophy. I mean, as I got into it, right? And it was just hitting all of those buttons of like, this is the coolest thing in the world, right? And I loved it. somewhere, so to get to where, so that's how I got into chiropractic. Taking that to functional medicine, for a very long while, I was and I don't know if this is where it gets weird. And I know you guys have tackled this before. I'm not sure that functional medicine is chiropractic, but I'm also not sure that it's not. And I think it gets kind of confusing. And I think we're all kind of confused, but I'm just using a term that other people are using, functional medicine. And I'm, certified in it. I've gone down that training and I love it. I love how it augments what I do. But at some point I was doing both functional medicine, which is running labs, looking at chemistry and like the internal environment, while I was doing chiropractic and helping the neurological system interact and adapt with the external environment, right? And I was doing that. And then I ended up, I can't explain this without just saying it. It sounds, I don't mean for it to sound egocentric. So just hear me out. I felt like I knew enough of my colleagues that could come in and do the manual adjusting work of the chiropractic end, working with the subluxations, working with the neurological integrity, helping that innate, that piece of it. And I felt like my job started to lean more and more into what can I do to help clean up the body so that innate has what it needs to do the job in the vehicle that it's in, right? Did that make sense? Did I say that the right way? So my philosophy, I guess, became, we can do all the adjusting in the world and get the nerve working, but if the body itself doesn't have the right nutrients, if the body itself is polluted, if it's dehydrated, if it's sedentary, if it's, riddled with stress and we have an irregular sleep pattern and all these other things that are, I don't want to say easily, adjusted with a patient, but it's pieces of it. And I felt like my job became more and more helping people clean up their environment, clean up their internal environment, their external environment, helping with their detoxification pathways, gut integrity, balancing their hormones. I mean, all of that list goes on so that the work that the chiropractic doctors that were doing the adjustment, because we were all chiropractic doctors, but the ones that were doing the adjustments, then their adjustments would take to that vital system that was full of nutrients, full of hydration, full of, all the stuff that the body needs, to be healthy and to express itself. So I felt like my job was coinciding with that. So that's how I got into, functional medicine. And I really haven't looked back, and I've been working in tandem with, basically leaning more and more into that aspect of it, the environmental, chemical, biochemical, genetic, epigenetic that we were talking about before, all of those aspects, so that when that adjustment is delivered by the chiropractic doctor, that nerve flow is doing its job to the best of its ability. That's my story.
I think it's really fundamental for you to share some of these things, because I've written down a lot of notes. I typically don't write down a lot of notes when I'm in the middle of an interview with people, because I can remember so much, and I can go back into the file and look and see where the thought came from and remember exactly what to say. But you shared so much there that I had to start writing some notes down.
Hey, just so you don't feel bad, wait, Jim, I've got a whiteboard with notes that I'm keeping here too.
But usually I have this great capacity of memory of what you say and be able to do a recall back to some key topics that you discussed with us. But there's a lot that
Sure.
are here for me. And one of the ones that I wanted to start out discussing is old school MDs.
Yeah.
Dr. Green used to be my family doctor, and Dr. Green was old school. Dr. Green, you know what he didn't do? Prescribe medication.
Right.
Dr. Green was old school. Dr. Green was like, well, let's see what we can do to use a old wives style of medicine to get this person better. Well,
Right.
what do we put into him? Cod liver oil? Yeah,
Right.
that was something that he would do.
Right.
What else do we do? Glycerin? I don't know.
Right.
Whatever they were doing back in the day, he was practicing MD without pharmacology. And that's something that's so unique to those old school Western named physicians that were in your neighborhood. Well, that was the thing that what real doctors were.
Yeah.
They weren't glorified drug pushers. They were actually caring for their community. And that's where we've lost our touch with the actual medical profession, is now we think that a doctor gives drugs.
Right.
And that's where we've lost touch with that.
Absolutely. You know, just you call them drug pushers. Just to let you know, I have publicly referred to certain people as Pez dispensers, and I don't think that that goes over well in certain professions. But you know,
well, another thing about what you were talking about is you look at the full body, and I really believe that chiropractic is blueprint care. You look at where the blueprint of the spine needs assistance, you help. Now, what I really believe in the arena of functional medicine or that type of construct of where the path of the profession is going for you is you look at the blueprint of the poop, you look at the blueprint of the blood, you look at the blueprint of the 3 T's: thoughts, traumas, and toxins. But you also look at the blueprint of the eat well, think well, move well, and you look at the whole blueprint of the human. You look at the human condition. You look at the position of physiology. You look at the position of toxicology. You look at the position of what does a healthy version of you represent. And that's what I love about this arena of biohacking is what you're doing is you're looking and seeing where the problems are within the person. And you're saying, these are the solutions that we can do, but you have to be accountable. You have to do the shit with me.
Right.
I'm not just going to say, go do and come see me and we'll adjust you and the world's better. You have to be an active participant in your health and well-being. Yeah. And the other thing that I wanted to touch on before we go to the next stage of this interview is that I grew up in Davenport, Iowa, and I also thought that all chiropractors were at Palmer.
Yeah, it's right.
I also thought that the only chiropractors in the world were at Palmer College. So full disclosure.
That's funny. and especially in the Quad Cities, because I mean, you can't trip and not fall into a chiropractic like clinic somewhere, right? I mean, every other door on the street, I'm teasing, but I mean, it's to a certain extent.
So what are some of your mantras that you live your life by? And what are some of your favorite motivational quotes?
Oh man, there's so much here, right? So much. First of all, I got challenged. That's a great question, by the way. And I actually challenge my clients, my patients. I don't like to call them patients, by the way. I don't like clients either because it sounds so businessy. If I refer, just for full disclosure, if I refer to clients, I'm talking about patients. I don't like patients because the Latin comes from basically meaning one who suffers. And I just don't like that idea of working with one who suffers. I don't know. I want a more uptone word than that. But nonetheless, coming back, I was challenged a number of years ago with a friend of mine, Matt Lohman down in Texas, not a doctor whatsoever. He's an HR, he runs an HR consulting business. And he said, hey, Bradley, what's your purpose? And I'm like, I thought about this before. I can't remember how I answered. I'm like, I don't know. I need to be like a good doctor, a good husband, a good dad, whatever. You gave the list, right? And he's like, okay, what if you can't be a doctor? What if you can't be a dad? What if you can't be a husband? Like, what's your purpose? Like, let's strip it down, man. What, you can't, and I'm like, why can't I be a doctor? And he's like, I don't know. Lose your license. Why did I lose my license? I don't know. Why can't I be a dad? I don't know. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, what's your purpose? Give us our purpose. It's not dependent on anything else. And it took me a long time, guys. And this is one of my motivating statements. It took me a long time to come up with this. And I thank Matt for this. And I was able to define my purpose statement. I remind myself of it every single day. And, I feel like my purpose on this planet is to do the best that I can to help leave behind the world a happier, healthier, and better place in all my actions and interactions. And I think I get to do that no matter who I am, no matter what hat I'm wearing, right? Whether it's the dad hat, the friend hat, the chiropractic hat, the functional medicine hat, the fixing my house hat, or whatever it happens to be. I get to try to leave behind a happier, healthier, and better place with all my actions and interactions. And I think that has driven me to start to, if you'll let me say this, I think this is how we met, to start to collect people around me that kind of have the same philosophy, right? And it gets, maybe not in exactly those words, but I see you guys, I see Ed, I see, Ryan, I see, Bruce, I see people that are all saying, what legacy this world has gone to hell in a handbasket. What legacy can we leave behind to leave it a happier, healthier, and better place? And ultimately, I think that's what we're all working for. Jim, I already said that I quote you sometimes, so let's not forget that, you leave some great and inspirational messages. But one of the ones that sticks out also as a driving factor for my doctoring, this is so overquoted, and I apologize. But it comes from BJ, who said, you have your possession is sacred trust, guard it well. And I think it's one of the most important quotes that any doctor of any type of doctor can be. But it also has to do with not only the doctoring part, but also the self part, right? We have in our possessions ourselves. We have, like you said, that commitment, those choices, guard that self well. And I think BJ was saying some maybe I read too much into some of his statements, but there's a lot there. There's some heaviness there with what he was talking about. And I think that those would be some, I guess, to kind of give you where my head is. That's what motivates me.
Well, listening to what you say, it's very much about taking care of yourself, and that's how you got into the profession. And it's very much about taking care of others, which is why you took an anthropology and a language degree.
Right.
And you said, I'm going to go and learn how to become a doctor. And that's also a big challenge, because I also have a degree in the arts, and there's a reason that Jim Chester is not a chiropractor, because I said, hey, I'm educated enough. I don't want to go back and do what you, Dr. Jason Bradley, did, is to get a further degree and then to go into doctor program,
right,
and then go out there and to start a private practice. So I give you so much respect for going through the education process and then realizing that you did it wrong and that you had to go do it the right way if you wanted to go the path that you're on right now. So that's a big undertaking. And there's a reason that I don't have DC after my name. It's because I'm like, I've already proven to myself that I'm educated.
Absolutely.
I've proven to myself that I'm smart. I've proven to myself that I have some type of, educational fortitude.
Yeah.
But when I hear your story, I'm like, wow, this is pretty impressive, because we're from the same cut. We're from the same part of the country. And, I have so much admiration for somebody that can go through and get a language arts degree and then go into a science-based degree and then become a doctor.
Thank you, by the way, for all of that. That's a lot of kudos my way. But listen, honestly, what you guys are doing, you're unifying the profession, you're giving a voice to the voiceless, you're bringing back vitality. And I can't even name one DC that's doing that. So I want you to recognize the impact that you're having on the profession and then ergo the way it's practiced, the way it's thought about. And then that's going to have a ripple effect on how many thousands of people, millions of people, Jim. I don't know. I'm impressed. You guys are awesome. And I really mean that. Also, sometimes, people, I've had those kudos thrown to me before, but I'll let you know, honestly, what really happened is I needed help and I couldn't find help. Honestly, this is what happened. It's so many people. It's how a lot of people go to chiropractors the first time, right? I couldn't find the help I was looking for within the general medicine community, even though I revered it and I had these great people around me that were not like the Pez dispensers of today, right? It still wasn't working. And like I said, chiropractic, it just made sense. It just made sense to me. And actually, I struggled less through the left brain studies as opposed to the right brain studies. And I think that doesn't make me smarter, but trust me, than anyone on the planet at all. I believe me. But talk to my wife. She'll tell you that. She'll underscore that for sure. I'm just better at left brain stuff than creative right brain stuff. I can't draw very well. I'm dyslexic. I can't read, there's all this stuff, but for some reason, that's what I felt like I wanted to. Guys, at 18 years old, I wanted to be I was talking to my daughter about this earlier. She's like, what do you want to do when you were younger? And I'm like, I wanted to be a poetry professor. That was what I really wanted to do. I wanted to study romantic, poetry and teach romantic poetry at some college. That was my intention of my life. Could have been a good life. It's a different life. I'm so glad I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, I was going to be an English professor. So, Here we have it.
Yeah.
I don't
We
have
were at the same school, for all I know.
I don't have leather patches on my elbows right now.
Right. Oh, I've had those. I've had that jacket.
Well, the other part that you mentioned that I think that we should glean upon a little bit is people always are curious. Well, why do you do the podcast, Jim? Do you make any money? And I go, no, it's not about the money. It's about the cultural authority and the message of the beautiful profession of chiropractic. And if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it the way that we can produce it. So when people are always curious about how financially viable our show is, I don't care. I don't care. What I care about is that you see the blind spot that we're filling the void for. What I care is that the people that watch us and they love the consistency of the message and the brand, that's the only thing that matters to me.
Yeah.
Money is energy. We have enough of energy. We have enough of money, but we don't have enough media leverage for the beautiful profession of chiropractic, damn it. And that's why what we do stands up to the other people that have different agendas. And now we can unify this profession, as you said, with a vitalistic voice that's non-DC that can become a megaphone for the future and the present. Like Edison said, the doctor of the future will, interest his patients in the frame of the body, and then not in the symptoms, but in the cure. And when we talk about the message of chiropractic, it's not the future, it's now. And that's why us connecting with you today, when you share this with your practice members and your community, they're going to say, wow, those guys are really philanthropic about the profession, and they're not out there with a hidden agenda to try to make more money, but the money comes when the truth is delivered.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think there's just so much there. And like I said, I think that you nailed it when you said there hasn't been a solid media arm for chiropractic. And I think that you guys are filling a massive area that needs filled. Like I said, you're giving a voice to the voiceless. You're giving a voice to a voiceless profession. Especially the vitalistic doctors that are in chiropractic care and providing that care. I mean, we all know this. I don't know if people talk about this, but I mean, there is a schism in the profession, right? I mean, there is the vitalistic doctors, and then there's when I was in school, they called them metapractors, whatever you want to call it, right? I'm not picking on anybody at all. And I think that there's lots of lenses that we can look through, but I think ultimately, just like you said, it's not about the money. It's about what's our purpose. What's driving us forward? And hopefully our purpose is more than, I just want to make a bunch of money. I think that's a level of a purpose. Again, I don't think it's a real purpose. It's a level of an understanding of purpose, right? But ultimately, I think you guys nail it. Like when we're in there in service and love, and we just say the ultimate thing is the outcome, that's what we're looking for. I mean, we've all faced this. I've never talked with you guys about this, but I mean, I have faced destitution in my life more than once, right? Because we're living on the edge, right? We're pushing our agendas. We're leveraging money like it's energy and using it to grow and expand and reach more people and have a bigger impact, bigger influence. We can help, Gandhi says, be the change in the world, be the change in the world that you want to see. And I mean, that's what we're trying to do with a larger and larger voice. And that's why this show is so important. And I agree with you. It's about the legacy that we're leaving behind. I think our generation, I know I'm a little ahead of you, but I'm gonna de-age myself a little bit and just say that I'm your age for half a minute. But I think our generation, this people right now that we're having this conversation with, it's up to us to make sure that in 25, 50 years, we have a chiropractic profession. And I mean that. I mean it. I'm just gonna leave it there.
So how do you think the world would change if everyone started getting under chiropractic care consistently? And then maybe one step further, what would it be like if everyone learned how to biohack?
Oh man, so much there, right? First of all, I mean, we all know, if Rachel was here, she'd have a better quote. I'm going to bastardize something that Rachel tells me all the time. we are limited by our own limitations. Let me just say that. She says it much more eloquently, but I think that we get the idea, right? We're limited by our own limitations. We're self-limiting, not just between our ears, but our body can be self-limiting, right? If we can't have our neurological epicenter, the brain, right, connected with the rest of our body through the afferent, efferent nerves and all the communication and assimilating that, and then telling all the body to do what it needs to do. I mean, if that doesn't work, it doesn't work. I mean, our existence on this planet is going to be dimmed. The light is going to be. I wish I had a dimmer switch on my light here. I'd actually do like a dimmed, and I'd be really dramatic. But I mean, without that, with neurological interference, we are always going to have a dimmer light than without it. Number one. So I think that everybody doing, if we had the world doing chiropractic, can you imagine the clear-headedness? I mean, that neurological center firing with all the pistons working in the right way, right? Can you imagine so there's that big concept. I think people would be thinking clearer, having more creative thoughts, assimilating information, being more productive. So I mean, I see a leveling up of all of that. But then beyond that, real dumb basic stuff here. And I mean, please understand, I'm not degenerating chiropractic to pain management, but just dumb stuff. It also turns out that while we're working with the neurological centers and getting all that working, a lot of times when we're freeing the body up to be more mobile, we have less pain, right? Because we don't have the restrictions. And then I start thinking about people that are in pain and they're drugged because of the pain, and how that dumbs down the senses and can color your lens of life. And so there's that. And then also, even if you're one of those people like, I'm not taking pain meds, but they're in pain. I mean, I have lived in pain before. Jim, I know you've lived in pain. I mean, it's not fun. Living with pain is horrible, and when you're in enough pain, you can't do anything else. And again, I'm not trying to say that's what chiropractic is good. It's just a real cool added benefit. So huge picture, nervous system firing on all pistons, up productivity. Certainly, on the lower end, I don't know if it's lower, but less inflammation, et cetera. I think that's brilliant. Couple that with biohacking. Man, if people would just take the time once a year, this is my opinion, at a bare minimum, once a year, get your chemistry ran. Take a look at your vitamins and minerals in your body. I mean, I'm not talking we can do an epigenetic dive, but if people just did some basics, what do your nutrients look like? Let's add some nutrients in. Let's eat some foods. Your vitamin D is really low. If you don't want to take supplements, let's eat some mushrooms that are high in vitamin D, right? Your hormones are off. What can we do there? And I think that if we start looking at biohacking, functional medicine, chemistry manipulation, balancing, whatever world we want to talk about here, epigenetics, if we combine that with proper neurological flow and that innate intelligence being able to cycle through the body and being directed by that nervous system without being impeded by stressors to the body, traumas, toxins, and thoughts, right? Physical damage, pain, inflammation, chemical damage, chemical imbalances, thoughts as we reduce that inflammation and we're having less depression, less anxiety. Honestly, guys, I can't imagine what that world would look like if that was the way we raised our children for the first 7 years. We need to, drink enough water, eat enough food, move the right way, work on stress management, work on sleep, get adjusted, and that's our life. If we did that, guys, I think the world, this insanity that we're seeing right now, especially in America, but all around the world, I really think it would be dialed down. I can't prove that or disprove that, but that's what I believe.
Well, understanding the lens that you look through, that's why we've attracted you into our ecosystem, because we look at the world with a similar lens.
Right.
And I'll give this quick analogy, maybe two, but there's a reason that people take care of the prize horses that run races the way that they do, because they get them adjusted.
Right.
They check out their chemical component. They check out their physio component. They stable them in the best style of environment, and they take care of that one prize horse better than themselves.
Absolutely.
Or the person that owns the 67 Firebird, they make sure that bad boy's garage kept.
Yeah.
Make sure that it gets maintenance. They don't drive it too hard. They know that the vintage of it's going to be more valuable if they take care of it. So understanding this performance vehicle. Now we talk about the highest level performers in the world, which are the, pro athletes, or the collegiate athletes. I guarantee you all of them are getting adjusted. Why would they do that? Because it gives them a physical edge of performance. It gives them a physical edge of production, of productivity, of well-being, of health. And I think that if we thought about each of us as vital as a component, as a soccer mom, teacher, preacher, a leader, whoever it might be, it could be, you said, the first 7 years of development, that young child getting that type of care. Now it changes the dynamics of the development within that person, which gives them the ability to have the upper hand on not being in sickness and disease and infirmary. And the way that you were brought up with the revolving door of physicians, that doesn't become the narrative for the future generations if everybody understood that human performance was affected by chiropractic and the adjustment and the care and well-being of that physician of chiropractic, which they can, embody within the service they provide. That's where the real big win is. When we start looking at the individual, the stay-at-home mom, the office worker that works from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., or now the Zoom generation that are going to all be sitting at home doing what we're doing right now. But when people actually start taking care of themselves as a high performance, we change the game.
Yeah, I hear you. Like it's funny that you use thoroughbred, right? I have told people, what if you're the thoroughbred? Like literally, you are your most valuable asset, right? And it's go on and on here. I think culturally, if I'm allowed to wax poetic, I think culturally we have been indoctrinated to put the self not first, and that it's very selfish if you're thinking of yourself. Right? We hear this stuff, and yet we have a dichotomy when you're on a plane and they're like, in the unlikely event that, we lose cabin pressure and the oxygen mask fall down, be sure to put yours on first. And the sidebar there is because if you try to put babies on first and mom goes down, we're going to lose baby and mom. Right. So, I think that inherently we get it, but nobody is saying it's your job, it's your responsibility, it's your duty to yourself and to those that count on you, that love you, that depend on you, to be your best self on this planet. We are here for a brief moment in the blink of time. And we're going to be gone. Even if it's not tomorrow, it might as well be, like I said, with the way time works. We're not here that long. And I keep feeling like on this planet with this little bit of time that us crazy little humans are here running around together, right? What if we just poured our energies into being our best selves, into loving each other, into serving each other? I just think the world could be so different. I'm almost in tears. I'm talking myself into tears, so I'm going to back off. But I really want that world. I can see it. I think you guys can see it. I think people want it. I just don't know why we're not there yet.
That's why I become so vigilant.
Absolutely.
And that's why I tell people that self-care is self-love. And that's why if anybody sees anything that I do from day to day, they see me pouring into others.
Yeah.
Because it's not about us anymore, even though we are the most important part of the movement.
Right.
But we also have to understand that we have to become servant leaders.
Absolutely.
And things that I always like to give gifts of envy. Okay. So whenever I think about like, what would I want somebody to provide to me? Well, I'd want somebody to provide good information and inspiration the way that I provide to others. Well, what would I like to do? I would like somebody to create a show like ours that could inspire me to do greater in the world, and to start connect the dots with people that have something to say and stand for something. Well, that's what I want to embody to others, is that chiropractic and the chiropractic community and lifestyle is something they should damn well pay attention to and start to support and to become a part of, because when you do that, it changes you. And that's what I'm really like humbly aware of is what you're doing in your little, community of Iowa City. You're changing people's lives from a fundamental perspective because you believe in it so much that you want to give that gift to other people. And that's a gift of envy that's worth giving.
I appreciate that. It's funny. I haven't said this in a long time, but I know you're from here too, so you'll understand it. Sometimes I feel like we're in the belly of the beast here. We're Daniel in the lion's den. The UI, University of Iowa, is a very old medical school. here in the United States. It's the largest teaching hospital, at least in the United States, if not one of the largest in the world. We have very advanced medicine, if you'll let me say that. And we are also very dogmatic and do not talk about things like chiropractic being real. So, I mean, or any vitalistic philosophy, anything that's not at the hospital, if it's not a drug or a procedure, it's not real medicine. And we are churning out, new doctors from the university here that really believe that the only real medicine is being taught at a medical school. And so as much as I'd like to say that profession has made inroads, we're not even, it's funny. I got asked to be on a board at the hospital when they were putting together something called the CAM clinic, the Complementary Alternative Medicine Clinic. And I was going to sit on the board and weigh in, and we had a bunch of people there. It was those of us that stayed on for any length of time before we quit, we started calling it the Scam Clinic, because all that they would do is put us around a room. This is the way it worked. They put us around a room, and they would bring in a case, a case study. Here's the case, and read it. And it doesn't matter what the case was, right? And they'd go around the room, and the biofeedback person was like, I think she needs biofeedback. The holistic pharmacist was like, oh, she needs St. John's wort. It's going to take care of that anxiety and depression. There was another chiropractic doctor that was there, and he's like, they need an adjustment. There was an acupuncturist there that they needed acupuncture. I mean, and you can imagine like the way this is, and they get to me, and I'm like, can I have a little bit more detail on like what brought the patient here? Where do they want to go? Do we have labs on this person? Like, what's going on with the human being behind this? And there was no room for discussion on that. And here's the funnier part. So our university, this is as alternative as we got. No matter what anybody would say, they always went with the holistic pharmacist, and it was always St. John's wort. It was always holistic psychiatric medicine, which was funny. I don't know what the outcomes were because we never got follow-ups on the cases. That clinic has since been closed at the university. The funding fell through, and they changed that clinic into I don't even want to talk about this. I'm not trying to be political. It's just what it is. It's now a transgender type clinic that's serving that population. So I just want you to know that at this hospital that we're at, our conversation would not even be remotely allowed. When I was sitting on that CAM clinic, they used to say things to me like, we know your title says doctor, but we're not sure the university can recognize that degree. And I was like, that's the weirdest thing I've ever heard, And I don't care. I'm not an ego guy, but just to kind of throw that out there.
So maybe you could touch upon who some of your heroes are and who inspires you. And if you could pick anyone from history to go to lunch with, who would that be?
So I love this question. And I want to just first and foremost say that my answer is always going to be my wife or my kids. Okay. But only because I love them so much, and every minute counts. Right. But exploring it beyond that, man, I gravitate to kind of big thinkers. I think a lot of people do, but I really do gravitate to big thinkers, people that have big ideas. And of course, BJ comes to mind. I mean, how could you not say that? I mean, there's so much there. I mean, I was thinking about this earlier, and, from the chiropractic profession, I mean, I could go down the names of the late and great, right? I think any one of them would be a blast. I had the pleasure of briefly knowing and spending a little bit of time with Fred Barge. And I mean, what a character. I mean, he's gone, and God bless him, but man, what a character. He had a personality that was just awesome. I mean, I don't know if you guys ever had a chance to meet him before he passed on, but I mean, what a legend. But also people outside of the profession, like in functional medicine, Linus Pauling, winner of 2 Nobel Prizes, the grandfather of functional medicine. He called it orthomolecular medicine, right molecule medicine, meaning that what we think is right for one person with the condition may not be right for the other person with the condition, because they were starting to talk about different causalities that might manifest in the same symptoms. So Pauling was laying down the work that symptom-based medicine is ridiculous. And of course, we haven't changed much today, but that's what we do. His immediate follower that took over functional medicine and changed the name was Jeffrey Bland. I've had some great times with Dr. Bland. He is definitely if Pauling was the great-grandfather, he's the grandfather. And Bland wrote a great book that I'd recommend to everybody called The Disease Delusion. That guy, though, I'd like to hang out with him and have a drink or have dinner. And at the same time, I just want you to know, this is the type of guy that talks in science in a way that is just different than most people. Just throw it out there. But I think it'd be fascinating to hang out with Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, but really to pull it into the political scene today. I would love to sit down with Thomas Paine today and just hear what the heck he has to say. And I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he wrote Common Sense back in the Revolutionary War. And I would just really like to hear what he has to say about what's going on with America today. And I'll just leave that there too.
Well, I love some of your inspiration and how you view your position right now and who's influenced you. I don't know a whole lot about functional medicine or that type of mindset, but what I do understand is that concierge care is so important, and that you can't cookie cutter approach the care plan for anybody.
Right.
You have to make it individual. And that's why what you're saying is, when you're on that board, well, what did they come in with? What are the outcomes we're looking for? Has anybody done any labs on them?
Right.
And I think that that's really where we have to go with a style of understanding what is necessary and how we need to approach an individual. Because the way you take care of a mom that's, 45 is different the way you're going to take care of a kid that's 3.
Right.
And, you have to understand what the molecular level of that body is representing in order to say, this is how we take care of it. And that's why I think it's so important for chiropractic to take x-rays, because you're taking care of the blueprint of that human. And if you understand what the blueprint of the inside looks like, then you can understand maybe some of the reasons why the organ system is doing what it's doing. And then you can start to understand why some of the symptomatology is starting to represent the way that it does. Oh, you have headaches. Interesting. Let's check and see what your spine looks like.
Yeah.
Oh, you have digestive issues like you're saying you had. Well, let's look and see what your spine looks like. And I think that as you go back to the whole course of reality for the medical industry, we need to all go back to where the immune system has an impact from the nervous system, has an impact on the spinal column, which is the cord, which goes to all of the nerve endings to all the organ system. So if we can make that conversation become more real for each person, then each person's going to say, wow, I think I should probably get some x-rays in my spine, and I should probably do some lab work to see what my blood says.
Yeah. I mean, it's just basic care, right? I'm creating videos. I'm doing a lot of content creation right now and teaching. And I mean, there's a lot that's going on behind the scenes with Epic as we're kind of figuring out our next step, so to speak. Epic is our clinic, virtual clinic. But somehow in my meanderings, I have done at least 3 hours, not all at once, but 3 hour-ish long videos on the ridiculousness of the standards of care in medicine. And what I mean by that is, if we just take the top 3 killers in the US, right? Or top 2, let's just look at the top 2, heart disease and cancer, right? I mean, American Heart Association says that in 2020, we're gonna have a little over 1 million deaths due to heart disease, #1 killer in the United States. According to their website, 80% could be prevented. According to their journal of circulation, 90% could be prevented. So that's 800,000 or 900,000 people, Americans, that could be saved every single year with taking the steps to prevent it. Cancer, American Cancer Society, same thing on their publications, are saying that 80% of cancers are going to be environmentally caused, meaning probably not genetically driven, right? It might be epigenetics, but they're going to be exposed. It's going to be poor nutrition. There's going to be poor lifestyle choices, right? There's a lot of lifestyle we now know leads into cancers. And what's interesting when we think about that standard annual physical, or that annual, I'm going to my doctor for my annual. They're not really doing anything. They're looking at some vitals, right? I mean, height, weight. I mean, I have some patients that need to lose some weight. I have a lot of patients that need to lose some weight, and then a lot of them lose a lot of weight and they do great. But I ask, they'll say things like, "Oh, I went to my doctor and I got a lot of tests done. They couldn't figure out what's wrong, and said I basically look healthy, And I'm talking to some, our average client, 35, 55-year-old female that's struggling with, fatigue and no libido and brain fog and body aches and weight loss resistance and anxiety and all that stuff that just comes, right, as the body is struggling. And I will ask them, like, well, so you saw your doctor, you got all these labs done. I'm not even there yet. And he said, you're healthy. Like, how do you feel? And she's like, and she'll say things like, I'm 105 pounds overweight. I have all these symptoms. I don't think I'm healthy. What's going on? Right. So I'll look at the labs, and we all know what they did. A metabolic panel, which is what's your glucose? Are you dying from hepatitis today? Maybe they threw the kidneys in there, and their kidney scores are so low that like the threshold is, I won't bore you with it, but this number 60, somewhere above 60, you're totally fine. But at 59 points, you have chronic kidney disease, stage 1, So I see these women coming in with like 61, 62 points. And I'm like, their kidneys are barely there. Their liver's barely there. But the doctor's like, I didn't see any highs and lows. But when we go back to heart disease, we don't check insulin. We don't check inflammation. We don't check really inflammation of the cardiac tree. We don't, for cancers, we're not doing cancer biomarkers, antigens that we can look for. There's no real screening or I don't even know, assessment related to the top 2 killers. If we throw one of the third leading causes of death in there, which is complications related to immune system dysregulation, nobody's looking at that either. They're not doing it's not even a deep dive. It's not even a surface level dive here. And then of course, also the third leading cause of death in America anyway is following your doctor's advice, right? Taking the medications, 250 to 400,000 deaths a year. And so we step back and we're like, we're not even screening people for the top 2, 3, 4 causes of death that are going to take out millions of people this year that the authoritative agencies say we can prevent and reverse. We're not running chemistry on them. We're letting, overweight and obese people leave the office with labs that are meaningless to them and saying, looks good to me, come back in a year, and somehow we call that healthcare. That's ridiculous. People want free healthcare. I don't even want that for free. Like it's not even worth that. What I just described is not even worth free. I mean, it's ridiculous. And and then we wonder why we have an entire society that we wait until the last minute when finally their vital organs are sick enough on those labs annually to say, hallelujah, you qualify for a drug today. We can do something, and then we put them on the drugs and they don't get any better, and they're just medicated. And I think that we just have to get in and just get the public thinking that health is not out here. It's in here. And we have to protect what's in here. We got to protect that nervous system, that flow of innate, the chemistry, the pathways. I mean, our body is made out of proteins, fats, carbs and fibers, vitamins, minerals, and water. That's it. That's all that everything in our body is made out of that 6 things. And somehow everyone has a deficiency of Zoloft or a deficiency of metformin or Lipitor or fill in the blank. And it's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm done. That was my rant. Thank you.
I appreciate you sharing that because a lot of people don't know how to take their gloves off and do that.
Oh.
And a lot of people want to handle the world with bubble wrap, and they don't want to tell the medical profession out there that, hey, maybe we should look a little bit different at what we are qualified to do. And I think that that's really why I have so much respect for this interview today, is because you're actually giving something that I look at the long road that we've been on, and I really believe that outcomes are more necessary than ever, and that information is very vital to people having great qualities of life.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I do these little things that I do, and I read affirmations to people, man. And that's why I do gym in the gym. And that's why I do that, because I think that if people all did 100 days of gym in the gym, Jason in the gym, Luke in the gym, or whoever's out there watching, Jenny in the gym, like if everybody did just that, they would start to realize that the answer is it's within them, and that their body can actually get stronger. And that if they were to go and do 100 days of gym in the gym, they would go back and look at their labs and they'd be like, wow, I don't have the same cholesterol problems. Wow.
Right.
I don't have the same vitamin D deficiency that I once had.
Right.
Wow. I have a better quality of sleep. I'm staying better hydrated.
Right.
My muscles are growing. I have better self-esteem. I have better relationships with people. My spirituality's improved. Like all these things that most people don't factor into a health score.
Right.
Those are the things that matter the most, is personal responsibility, self-improvement, and saying, hey, I just completed 100 days of the gym and gym protocol. Holy shit. I feel good. I look good. and damn it, people like me.
Right. Well, I think it's interesting too that ultimately I was watching I'm sure you might have seen this. I got to get the third one down. All right, community. I had to get my notes down because I was going to lose my thought. See, I'm telling you guys, words of wisdom from somebody pushing 50. I've just learned that if I write things down, it makes my life a lot easier. I surround myself with whiteboards and Post-it notes, and then at the end of the day, I figure out what's important and get rid of the rest. Right. So at any rate, I think the interesting thing about this idea of what we're talking about, I think, is about talking about becoming our best selves. I think that's what ultimately we're talking about. So that we can be our best selves, again, to experience this planet in the best way that we can and interface with it in the best way that we can, so that we can have a beautiful and wonderful and rewarding life of love and service. I really believe that's what this is all about. And I watched a documentary, and I'm sure you guys have seen this or heard of it. I think it was called Happy or Happiness or something like that. I'll find it if we really want it. But they said that basically they traveled all over the world, and they like all different types of cultures and socioeconomic classes, and different. Like I said, everything was different. And they found that there were three things that drove happiness, right? Only three things: philanthropy or giving, right? Community, surrounding yourself with people that are uplifting, right? And supportive and loving. And the third thing was personal growth, learning something new, pushing yourself outside of your boundaries, right? And the reason I bring that up with this idea of the best self movement and what we're talking about with getting innate freed up and releasing, that the nervous system work the way it does, or if I'm working with the chemistry or whatever we're doing, becoming that best self, biohacking, whatever it is. If happiness is really derived from giving and doing, like philanthropy, and being with other people and surrounding ourselves with that and learning, man, when you're struggling and suffering, when you don't have your foundation set, when you're not taking care of yourself, when you are absolutely just degenerating, living in pain, living with confusion, anxiety, whatever that is, that's your roadblock, right? Here I am, here's where I want to go, but I've got roadblocks. When we're there, we don't get to give as much. We don't get to learn as much. We don't get to commune as much. And I think that ultimately is what this life is all about. So when we're talking about removing interference, whether it's, traumas, toxins, thoughts, whatever that is, it's a profound impact on, again, like you said, we start doing one thing and then pretty soon it becomes lots of things. And pretty soon we're leveling up and we're feeling better and we're more productive and we're more giving and more growing and more, I don't know, better all around. Like I said, happier, healthier, and better place in everything that we do.
So on the topic of giving, what would be some advice that you would give a struggling chiropractic student? And how do you feel about them picking schools based on where they're located?
Man, I would not pick a school based on where you're located. This is me. I would go, listen, the profession is in a schism, right? I'm saying it again. I would go to a philosophically based school. I mean, I have no doubt. I don't want to name the schools. I'm going to stay neutral. I went to Palmer. And it is a vitalistic based school. I'm happy to say that. It's a philosophically based school. We got all of the same deep level of training that every other doctor on the planet got. I mean, we got the same curriculum almost down to the hours that any other type of chiropractic doctor or medical doctor or osteopath, or, I mean, the degrees are all so similar, right? That it's easy to get lost in what am I doing? What's the purpose? Why not just be a medical doctor? Why be an osteopath? Why not be a naturopath? Why be a chiropractor? I mean, what's the difference if the education is the same? Ultimately, the difference is the philosophy, the intention. Some of the schools teach philosophy and some of the schools don't. And I would be lost without the philosophy. I really mean that. I would be a very mechanistic. I told my wife, Rachel, my far better half in every way, and anybody that knows her knows I'm telling the truth. I told Rachel that if I didn't have the philosophy with Palmer that I got, I'd probably be an amazingly successful surgeon. And I mean that out of love. I mean, I don't think there'd be anything wrong with that. I think there's a call for great surgeons. But I mean, is there a philosophy behind it? I don't know. I mean, it's very mechanistic, right? And I think you could be a great mechanic. But at the same time, I would say choose a school that has a philosophy behind it. And again, they're pretty easy to figure out if you spend 2 seconds on that. as far as so that's good advice for the pre-chiropractic student. For the new grad, I'm going to tell you what I should have. I didn't do this, but I should have. And when I had a clinic and we had, the interns coming in and doing some training with the students and all that, here's what I would tell them. I would say, in my opinion, my humble opinion, if you have a desire to have your own clinic, I think entrepreneurialism and that, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful construction of your own destiny. I love it. But here's what I would do. I would go to another city, somewhere else, same state, different state, doesn't matter. Go somewhere else, somewhere that you want to live for a while, but that in your head you're not committing to. Find a job somewhere. Find a job with a good chiropractor that is going to mentor you and teach you. But I would go into this is my opinion again, not in your dream city. I know this is really weird to say. And this is what I always tell people. I'm like, go make mistakes working for somebody else. You're going to make some grand mistakes when you're out of practice or when you're out of school and first get into practice. I would go work with someone that's going to help you navigate those mistakes than being on your own. And then you know what? Lo and behold, if that place ends up feeling like home and that clinic ends up feeling right, awesome, right? But if it doesn't, right, as we talked about before, sometimes chiropractors eat their young. Guess what? You were never planning on staying in that city anyway. You gleaned a lot of great information, and now I made a lot of mistakes for that guy. I'm going to go do my own thing now and not make those mistakes. Again, I think that's a real, it's the new grad creating the infrastructure. I think if the new grad, and listen, that might not be the best advice for everybody, but I think it's solid advice. Go learn from someone that's been in the profession for a long while. Maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. I hate to say it to the new grad, it probably won't. I'm gonna be honest with you guys. So don't choose your perfect spot. Just don't do that right out of the gate, unless you know what you want to do.
Sound advice. I see, what you've experienced over your career of 21 years coming out, and I see you celebrating, what you've been able to live through. And I think that that's the greatest testament of sharing your story. As I always tell people, it's not the person with the best story is always the most valuable in the room. It's not the one that's dressed the nicest. It's not the one that has the biggest house or the fastest car. It's the one that possesses the greatest story. And when you talked about what the quotients are for happiness, it's about community. It's about giving back, and it's about self-improvement.
Yeah.
And that's why your story is so powerful today, because you're talking about philanthropy, you're talking about giving back, and you're talking about self-improvement, and you glean on to your better half, Rachel, and your children, and leaving the world better than what you found it. And I think that that conversation is very, we don't talk about it enough.
Right. We don't.
And that's the genius behind this show, is we talk about this all the time, and it's our lifeblood.
Right.
It's what gives us our position in this world to feel like we're contributing.
Right. I was just a quote. I don't know if you know Alex Sharfin. You might know him. If you don't, I would highly recommend following his podcast, Momentum Podcast. It comes out once or twice or 3 times a week, depending on how quickly he gets it out. It's short. It's sweet. It's about getting momentum either in business or personal self. And he's a cool guy. Anyway, Alex has given me so many words of wisdom, along the years. And ultimately he laid into me concepts like the person that for true happiness, we just need to give it away, basically is what he's saying, that we just need to give and give and give until it hurts. Because the more we give with purity, really, we all know this, right? We've all, like I said, been on the doors of destitution with what we're doing. And yet at the same time, haven't you found that the universe always comes and just makes it okay? It always works out. I've never not eaten a meal. Oh, that's not true. I might have skipped a meal on purpose here and there, but you know what I mean? I've never been so desperate I haven't eaten. I know some people have. I've been fortunate, right? I've never not had a place to stay. I might not have had, the fastest car, or the biggest house or this or that, through my life. But at the same time, I've always been taken care of. And I love this quote from Mary Poppins, which I always, we were talking about quotes earlier. And this is another one, guys. Enough is as good as a feast. I love that one, right? what do you need more than enough, right? I mean, it's I feel comfortable with that. And I've really tried to build my life around that and just making sure that, you know, we have enough for our family and our, you know, whatever that means. And then trying to give as much back as we can, whether it's whatever that is, whatever value we can give back to the world. So I appreciate you guys having us all on and giving a chance to talk about that, because we don't get to talk about these topics really at all. And there's no unifying space to do it, you know? So thank you guys. I really mean that.
We created a safe house for chiropractic.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So I know we're almost at the edge of our time here, but the last question we wanted to ask you is, what kind of things do you like to listen to and read? And maybe what are some of your hobbies? What do you do for fun?
Sure. No, I think that's great. I was looking at the pile of books that we're reading right now, and it's so funny. I think that we have Ben Lynch and Dirty Jeans. We have, what do we have right here? Oh, Ben Lynch's Dirty Jeans. There's The Healthy Brain Toolbox by Ken Charlin. I think that what else am I reading right now? I have a few things that I'm looking at. Those are the two big books that I'm reading. There's another one. Amen's book. Daniel Amen and his wife. The Brain Warrior book. So kind of all these simultaneously. I read a lot of research. I'm a research junkie. I'm a left brain science geek. I really am. I love it. I'm just to let you know what I do for a hobby. I'm not lying, guys. I am salivating to have enough time on my schedule, hopefully this week still, to overlay the entire, I'm not going to do it justice, but the amazingly complex methylation pathway that seems to drive the entire biochemical system of the body. And I'm excited to draw this out and look at the nutrients and the epigenetics involved, and really like this is what I do for fun. I mean, so I love biochemistry. I didn't know that I did until I got into it. I just freaking love it. But I also like to listen to like biohacking things, like Dave Asprey's Bulletproof Radio is good. Joe Rogan, of course, Joe Rogan's hit and miss for me. When I love the show, I love the show. When I don't love the show, I don't love the show, if that makes any sense. So there's that. And like I said, Alex Sharpin is great. Freedom Formula. I like to tune into Ryan talking and you guys. And there's so much great content that's out there. And it's so inspirational. And I think that, Jim, you said it earlier that, I don't remember how you said it, but you referenced like surrounding ourselves with people that just want to lift us all up, And I think what a cool group to be part of, I mean, it's especially looking at my 16-year-old and I'm kidding, but her downer friends that are all just emo and, and I'm like, they're all just pulling each other down, I'm like, you guys need to be like this. And they're like, it's 16, but they'll grow out of it. So I don't know if that helped, but I'm all over the place with who I'm following because I'm a consumer of great content, and motivational content, scientific content, philosophical content. And then I don't read a lot of fiction, but once in a while I'll do an audiobook. My other hobby, I'm a very average guitar player, self-taught. I'm not good at all. I call it my Zen moment because I have to pay attention to what I'm doing because otherwise I can't do it. So I don't think about the past. I'm not good enough to not think about it, right? So I can't think about the past and I can't think about the future. I'm right there in my present Zen moment and I love it. And then just for fun, I have given up, for real, competitive backgammon. I was competing internationally online in backgammon tournaments for a while. I love it. I was convinced that there was a code for backgammon, even though it's random with the dice. I was convinced that, kind of like chess, there's got to be a move no matter what. And I got pretty good at it. I can't say that I cracked the code, but there is a code, and I got pretty good at it. And I ranked up, but then I got really bored because I'd either play people that didn't know the code and I'd win every time, or honestly, and I'm saying this for real, I'd play somebody from Turkey. These Turkish guys in backgammon, holy shit. Like I think I'm a master and they're like, you're just gonna, and I'm like, can you really annihilate me in a chance game with dice? And that's where I'm like, I need to bow out and figure it out. So what I'm learning right now is chess. I know how to play chess. I mean, I know the mechanics of it, but I don't know how to play chess. So I downloaded this like chess.com app, and it tells me every time, it's like, what move do you want to make? And I'm like, here. And they're like, that was a complete, like, there's mistakes and blunders. And I get dinged for mistakes and blunders all the time. I haven't figured it out by any means, but that's my new hobby. But I don't know if that answered that question, but I try to stay stimulated. Like Jim, I'm going to define myself as a Renaissance man, so yeah.
And where can people go if they want to learn more about you?
Sure. Yeah. I think the easiest place to go, probably if you're not following us on social media, our clinic is Epic Functional Medicine. You can go to epicfunctionalmedicine.com or epicfmc.com, Functional Medicine Center, epicfmc.com. You get a ton of information there. I will say that it's an okay place to go, but really, if you want to really like get to know me and what I do and how we're helping transform the lives of thousands of people from all around the world, we have a free Facebook group called the Epic 5 Community. And, like I said, I do an hour of coaching in there for free every single week. We have doctors and scientists and nutritionists and chiropractors and like all people in there. And we have public people in there. It's not a very big group yet, but we just launched. It's about 700 or 800 people. So I'm pretty happy about that. And my goal is by the end of the year, we're getting close. I wanted it to be at 1,000. And then I want to 10X that in 2021 to 10,000 and really use it as a safe space for us to have a legitimate conversation about taking care of ourselves. The reason that we started it was because I was going out to these support groups on Facebook. I mean, my real bread and butter, guys, is hashies and thyroid, right? I mean, combining functional medicine, chiropractic, integrative, holistic, whatever we need to do with thyroid and hashies. So I was in these thyroid and hashies groups, and it is just it's an echo chamber of commiseration. There's no constructive thoughts in there for the most part. There's no constructive feedback. If you do try to give constructive feedback, the admins come in and they're like, you're not allowed to say anything at all that's helpful. You just have to commiserate. I'm literally not joking. And I'm sure you've been in those groups, right? It's kind of like the why doesn't my marketing work group, right? And it's like people just want to complain about the marketing, and they're like, let's make it. What can we do? And they're like, I just want you to hear how bad it is, right? All I want to do is say how bad it is and why it doesn't work. That's what I felt like in these groups. So we felt the need to create a safe space. And like I said, we're really trying to get there. So the Epic 5 community, there's coaching, there's challenges, there's free prizes. It literally is a fun and engaging free group for the entire public to join. With my coaches in there, I'm in there. We do a lot of work. So I would say the Epic 5 community. But if you want to check out our official online brochure, epicfunctionalmedicine.com. Thank you.
All right, Dr. Jason, thank you so much for being our guest today.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it was really nice having you on the show, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Yeah, man. And hey, when Minute Iron goes live, I want to be there.
Sign up.
You will be.
All right, man. Thanks, guys.
Talk to you soon.
Yep, talk to you soon.